So this is one I get asked, I hear a lot, like people will say to me, along this theme, but in the theme of the question, is it good or bad to talk about pain? Does it make it worse? Do I make it more real by talking about pain, or even praying about pain, or even saying I am in pain? But what you've got to understand, everything is spiritual intention. So, like in 12-step programs, we talk about wallowing. Wallowing in something is actually counterproductive, whereas praying to have something removed is productive, you see. So both of them, what you're talking about it. So the spiritual intention is very different. When you're wallowing about something, or when you're in an ego intention, talking about a story, i.e., your motive is not to surrender it to God, but just to talk about it or wallow in it, or just play the victim. Like, let me tell you how much I'm suffering today. Let me tell you what a victim I am of these people today. Let me tell you my sob story, and please do listen to it. Now, and let me tell you I'm in pain and blah, blah, blah. So you're talking about it and you just feel worse. You didn't really relieve anything. And you go, well, I shouldn't talk about it because no, it's not that. It's because your intention wasn't spiritual. So it won't have any, it can even make it worse sometimes. So, however, if your commitment is to God and to pray humbly for God to intervene, to help you see it differently, to remove it, to bring forgiveness, to bring God's grace so you can do God's work in the world and be aligned with it. Those things, now you're talking about it, but the intention to invite grace, to invite divinity, to be your higher self, all of these things bring light and love because your intention is spiritual. Your motive is spiritual. Your motive is of a high order. So it's got nothing to do with talking. It's got everything to do with, is your intention spiritual in service to God, surrender to God, to be a better channel of God's light, or is it just ego wallowing? Let me tell you how painful my life is, and please sit there while I tell you about how bad it is. And oh, by the way, I've just talked about it and I feel even worse. So I better not talk about it. That's not the point. It's not the talking. It's your intention and your motive. So everything is motive. Try and give some examples. So Dr. Hawkins talked about I think it's Buddhist monks. They have a prayer wheel and they just whirl it around, you know, as an act of worship, and that actually, if you check their vibration spiritually, they have a very high vibration. Now, to someone looking at them, you'd see like, well, what's this got to do with anything? But they're actually getting very connected to divinity just by doing that act because they're doing it with spiritual intent. So when you do something, whether it's pray, do an act in devotion to the Supreme, to divinity, to God, to the infinite, and you do it with devotion in your heart, or you say the words with devotion in your voice, it invokes a high spiritual intention of release, surrender, and high spiritual states. Now, when you start talking from the level of your ego, then it really doesn't bring any relief, and it may make things worse. So I mean, I'm in 12-step groups, and I might say, for example, something like, and I can't really say it because it'll give away my group, but I'll say I'm an addict of some form. And people will say, oh, you can't say that. Yes, I can, because I'm saying it with spiritual intent. So it's not going to harm me. I'm not going to suddenly, pick up a bag of donuts. When you do things with spiritual intent and your heart is pure, you're in grace. When you do things from an ego motive, yes, of course, things can go wrong. Okay.